1,400 years ago, a promise was made that literally still echoes today. If you dig into the foundational Islamic texts, Prophet Muhammad made a highly specific, undeniable promise about the physical, flesh-and-blood return of Jesus, who is known in Islam as Prophet Isa. And we are not talking about some vague metaphor or a symbol here. Today, billions of people actively anticipate these exact, literal events. The sources outline an incredibly detailed narrative of his descent from the heavens, his ultimate mission, and the profound, world-altering impact his arrival is going to have on humanity.
So that immediately brings up a fascinating question, right? One that kind of frames our entire journey for this explainer. Where is Prophet Isa right now? I mean, if he's destined to return physically to Earth, where has he been hiding out for the last 2 millennia? To really answer that, we need to trace the complete chronological narrative laid out in Islamic eschatology, relying entirely on those foundational texts. To do that, we're going to track this journey step by step. We'll start with the mystery of his ascension, then look at his grand descent, his battle with the false Messiah, a golden era of peace, and ultimately, his final resting place. By the end of this, you are going to have a really clear grasp of this entire narrative arc.
All right, let's jump straight into Section 1, the Ascension Mystery.
Because to understand his return, we first have to understand his departure. The Islamic perspective on what happened historically in ancient Jerusalem diverges massively from other traditions. While the widely known Christian narrative centers on Jesus being crucified and resurrected, the Islamic texts present a fundamentally different account. They explicitly state that Isa was actually never crucified. Instead, another person was made to resemble him on the cross, and Isa was raised alive by Allah. So he didn't die and come back to life. The texts say he was completely spared from death in the first place.
This absolutely crucial point is anchored in Surah An-Nisa. The text is totally unambiguous. It says, "And they did not kill him, nor did they crucify him. Rather, Allah raised him to himself." This establishes the core Islamic belief that Isa was raised body and soul into the heavens. And because he never experienced death, the narrative dictates that he inevitably has to return to Earth to live out his remaining years.
Which naturally answers our earlier question, where is he right now? Based on the Hadith of the night journey, scholars pinpoint his current location as the second heaven. The texts describe him existing there in a uniquely preserved state, completely outside our earthly dimensions of time and biological aging. Imagine that. He is described as being fully alive right at this very moment, simply waiting for the divinely appointed time to return.
And that brings us to Section 2, the Grand Descent.
We are fast-forwarding the timeline to the much-awaited future event of his physical return, and what's truly fascinating here is just how hyper-specific the source texts are. According to Sahih Muslim, he isn't just going to appear out of thin air, he is prophesied to descend near the white minaret in the east of Damascus. The texts say he'll be wearing 2 warm, saffron-dyed garments, and his hands will be physically resting on the wings of 2 angels who are escorting him down. Plus, it states that his very breath will reach as far as his sight, instantly defeating those who disbelieve and oppose him. It is painted as an incredibly awe-inspiring, highly visible arrival.
Right after his descent, a profoundly humbling scene is supposed to unfold. Believers are gathered for the dawn prayer, Fajr. The leader of the Muslims at that time, Imam Mahdi, is preparing to lead the congregation. Isa descends right exactly at this moment. But when the Mahdi steps back to let Prophet Isa lead, Isa actually refuses. He explicitly defers to the Mahdi and chooses to pray behind him in the rows of the believers. Scholars point out this is a powerful gesture. It honors the followers of Muhammad and proves that Isa will operate under the existing Islamic law, or Sharia.
Immediately following this dawn prayer, Isa's mission kicks into high gear. Let's look at Section 3, Defeating the False Messiah.
The source material maps out a rapid, incredibly intense confrontation with the Dajjal, the false Messiah who's been deceiving the world. The texts say that Dajjal will literally begin to dissolve like salt in water the very second he senses Isa's presence. Isa will pursue him to the Gate of Ludd, and that detail is remarkably specific. Think about that for a second. Ludd corresponds to modern-day Lod, which is right by Ben Gurion Airport in Israel today. It's there that Isa will strike him with a spear, definitively ending the greatest tribulation humanity's ever faced.
Following that, Isa takes some highly symbolic actions. The Hadith mentions he will break the cross, kill the pig, and abolish the jizya tax. Now, drawing on classical scholars like Ibn Kathir, we have to be clear here. These are not portrayed as acts of violence or intolerance. They are massive theological corrections. Breaking the cross symbolizes correcting the theology that he was crucified. Killing the pig represents restoring the original, pure dietary laws he actually taught.
And abolishing the jizya? That means uniting the entire world under one singular, undeniable truth, which makes religious distinctions and their associated taxes completely obsolete.
Once these theological corrections happen and the Dajjal is defeated, the world undergoes a profound societal transformation, which brings us to Section 4, a golden era of peace.
The sources prophesy a period of incredibly just and merciful rule under Isa. Now, there is a bit of scholarly debate over the exact duration. Some texts suggest 7 years, others say 40, but the consensus highlights a prolonged, deeply transformative era of governance based strictly on Islamic principles.
The descriptions of this era are honestly almost surreal. Imagine miraculous agricultural abundance, where just a single pomegranate grows large enough to feed an entire group of people. Even the natural order is totally pacified. The texts describe a world where the wolf lives peacefully right beside the sheep, and children can play with snakes completely unharmed. Wealth is going to be so abundantly distributed that the texts say charity won't even be needed anymore because no one will be poor.
But eventually, we are reminded of a core Islamic principle regarding mortality in Section 5, the final resting place.
The sources are crystal clear on this. Even the absolutely greatest of prophets are mortal. After fulfilling his incredible, century-spanning mission and ruling the earth with perfect justice, Prophet Isa will pass away. He will experience a natural death, just as every human being must, and the texts specify that his final resting place will be in the city of Medina. And here is a deeply moving detail found in narrations by Abu Dawood. The text suggests that there is literally a vacant space resting right beside the Prophet Muhammad, reserved specifically for Isa. He will complete his earthly journey and rest right beside the seal of the prophets. It's really a stunning, poetic closure to an unbelievable narrative arc that spans thousands of years. Let's tie all of this together and look at the broader perspective in our final section, Section 6, a unifying message. It's super important to recognize the profound reverence the Islamic texts already hold for Isa. He is not just some peripheral figure. He is mentioned by name 25 times in the Quran. The text honors him with incredible titles like the Word of Allah and a spirit from him, affirming his miraculous birth and his immense status as one of the greatest prophets in history. And here is the core of the interfaith implications. Islam parts ways with the idea of Isa as the Son of God, framing him instead as the greatest servant and prophet of God. The texts present his prophesied return not as some act of conquering, but as an ultimate invitation. The sources state that when he returns, all the people of the book will recognize his true nature, finally unifying humanity under a shared, clear understanding of his actual role and message.
Which leaves us with this final thought. The texts assert that this return is an absolute certainty, preceded by minor signs that are quite literally passing us by every single day. This narrative isn't just ancient history or some distant future forecasting, it's a call to readiness. Based on everything the sources have laid out for us today, the ultimate question posed to you is this. When the heavens open and that promised moment finally arrives, will you be among those who recognize him? Thank you so much for joining me to unpack these fascinating source texts. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll see you in the next explainer.